I'm Warren Pepper. It's good to be with you again a couple of years after we did this not long ago. My wife is very involved and very active and very passionate about League of Women Voters, and she'll be the timekeeper here tonight, so pay attention, if you will, to the time allotted. The candidates are all here. We've had 8 total this year, and they are listed alphabetically up here, and that's how we're going to go through. So let me just take care of some housekeeping here, and we'll get some things going. And we're going to try to protect this, the integrity of the time from 6 to 7:30 this evening, and we appreciate all of you coming out. If some stragglers come in, we've got every chair in the house out, and most are taken, but there are a couple kind of spread around, so just kind of make room, and we'll accommodate those that come in after we start. Candidates, let me just introduce them to you if I might, as we come into this City Council forum. Let me just also explain that it's a forum and not a debate. A little difference in the way that's constructed. It's an opportunity for the candidates to share their platforms and for voters to educate themselves. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization and has not endorsed any candidate. On November 4th, voters will choose 4 City Council members to help lead the city of the Isle of Palms. Their terms are 4 years. I'll list these in alphabetical order, and then we'll give them a round of applause here at the end of that. John Bogosian, David Cohen, Larry Kramer, Zach Larry, Katie Myers, Bev Miller, Krista Swingle, Andrew Vega. We appreciate you folks stepping up and taking the challenge on. Here's our format. The candidates are going to have 60 seconds for an opening statement. We'll start with Mr. Bogosian, which means the first question would then go here to Mr. Cohen, and then we'll go right down the line. And that's the way this will kind of ferret itself out. Candidates may take an additional 60 seconds for rebuttals after all the other candidates have responded. Rebuttal, we characterize that as an opposing argument or a contradiction to what an opposing candidate might have said. If you wish to make a rebuttal, signal us by raising your hand. A candidate is allowed 1 rebuttal per candidate question, and it will be at the discretion of the moderator, that would be me, considering the overall time availability and whether to halt the opportunity to rebut. Each candidate will have 60 seconds for a closing statement, and when we do get to that point, we'll go in reverse order so that you will start with the closing statements, Mr. Vega, and then you would be the last to speak, Mr. Bogosian. The questions were collected from the membership of the sponsoring organization. Given the number of candidates, we will not have time to take questions directly from the audience. No question will be asked by the moderator that are directed to only one candidate or of a personal nature. Recordings of this event, whether they be in person or on a digital device, may not be used without the express written approval of the League. The League will only allow audio-video of this event to be broadcast or shared in its entirety, except by the media reporting on the event. To keep the flow of our forum, we have an official timekeeper. Judy Pepper is down front. Judy, raise your hand or your sign. For each of our candidates, Judy will hold up a sign reading 30 seconds remaining, and then a stop sign when a candidate must stop speaking. And just for a personal moment, Judy and I, 2 weeks ago, celebrated our 51st wedding anniversary. So that ain't on me. That's on her. She's, but she likes to be on time. Okay, so I say all that because all that somewhere fell under the vows, under the heading of Happy Wife, Happy Life. Thank you very much. So let's get this thing going here. We'll start with the opening statements. I will invite the candidates, given the fact that we're not amplified here with any speakers, if you would prefer to stand each time it's your turn to speak, I think it helps the folks in the back to see and hear you. And so that's how we'll start. And Mr. Bogosian, you're off with an opening statement.
All right, thank you, Warren. First, I would like to thank the sponsors of this event, the League of Women Voters. These events are so important to the election process because they give the candidates a chance to interact with the residents face to face, as opposed to reading about us in the newspaper or worse yet on social media. For those who may not know me, I'm John Bogosian. 4 years ago, you elected me to City Council, and it's been my honor to serve. In that time, I've worked hard to protect what makes our island special, expanding our conservation zones, improving drainage, strengthening livability enforcement, and safeguarding residents' quality of life. But we face new challenges. Our beaches are experiencing some of the worst erosion we've ever seen, and growth in the surrounding area continues to put pressure on traffic and neighborhoods. That's why I'm asking for your support for another term. I will continue to approach every decision with patience, fairness, and preparation. And I'll keep learning and working hard to find solutions that serve all residents. Thank you.
Thank you. David Cohen.
So I'm David Cohen. I moved to the island back in 1981 when I was about 19 years old. Alternated between here and school till about 86 and came back in 87 as a permanent resident renting and bought a home in 1990. I worked as an electronic systems engineer with the Navy my entire career in this area. I've kind of made this my home. I've been on planning commission from 2009 to 2014. I went off the planning commission. We tore down and rebuilt a house on our same lot. I came back on the planning commission in 21, where I am now, and I just see that the work that goes into doing long-range planning for the city, and would just like to see that better implemented in the future.
Thank you, David. One thing I didn't really maybe emphasize, this microphone is for the camera and for the YouTube presentation, so we'll share that and pass it down each way. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Larry Kramer. A little bit about me. Obviously, I'm here running for council. A little bit about me. I'm a proud graduate of Penn State University. Obviously, if you follow football, it's not a happy time for us right now, but at the end of the day, we'll come around. I played baseball and soccer at Penn State. I graduated in a degree in business management, and I've led 3 healthcare organizations. The last one that I led was a 2,500 member organization at $20 billion. We've had 3 turnaround opportunities within that organization. And what I found when I entered those organizations was that leadership was important. There was a gap in accountability. There was not a high sense of urgency, and the culture needed to change to drive results. I believe I can bring those skills and those experiences here. My wife, Jody, is a proud United States Marine Corps veteran. Her son and our son is basically an embassy guard in the Marines. And we believe that service to community and to country is very important, and that's why we're here to try and help. So thank you.
Thank you. Zach Larry.
Hi, I'm Zach Larry. I live in Wild Dunes with my wife Caitlin and our daughters Prudence and Phoebe. I realize how fortunate I am to be able to call Isle of Palms home and feel an obligation to contribute to this community to the best of my ability. And that's what prompted my self-funded campaign for City Council. I'm a problem solver. I'm able to separate emotion from decision making. I'm able to communicate and collaborate effectively, especially with those I don't agree. And as a resident on Looking Council these last few years, I feel those are traits we could use a little more of up on council. Not running with an agenda. I'm running to bring my collaborative leadership approach to our residents and some of the issues and concerns they face. I'm ready to listen, lead, and help keep Isle of Palms the amazing place we all chose to call home.
Thank you. Katie Myers.
Hi. I'm Katie Myers, and I promised 4 years ago that I would work hard for the residents of this island, and I believe that I have done that, and I believe that we have accomplished a lot, but I also think that with better leadership and a council that can come together and work as one for the residents, we can accomplish a lot more. We're asked a lot to address what we think are the biggest issues, and I'm sure we're going to talk about a lot of that, but things change, issues change so fast. So instead, I'd like to say what it is, how I decide to make decisions when I'm asked to make decisions for this island. And the primary thing I'd like to say is I look at the residents first. I'm not here for any sort of financial gain. I don't have any sort of hidden agenda. I ask myself what's best for the residents of this island. And then the next thing I look at is for transparency and ethics. And I believe that we can do a lot better if we have a transparent and ethical government. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Bev Miller.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm Bev Miller. Bob and I moved here 9 years ago. And like many of you, sorry, I already got the word. Like many of you, I care deeply about protecting this island. Our beaches, our neighborhoods, and our strong sense of community are what's important to me. I'm running because I believe in responsible, resident-focused leadership. Leadership that protects our beaches, that manages growth wisely, and that uses your tax dollars carefully and with transparency. I want our city to plan ahead, not react, and to make thoughtful decisions that keep Isle of Palm strong in the long term. I bring experience from the municipal and state government, levels of government, proven collaborative behavior from the dais in my municipal experience, and a steady focus on solutions. I'd be honored to earn your vote on November 4th.
Thank you. And Krista Swingle.
Good evening. I am Krista Swingle, and I'm excited to be here tonight. First, thank you for putting this event on, and thank you all for being here. I know that I think all of us are ideally really hoping for citizen engagement, so seeing a room full of people is exciting. And thank you to all the candidates. We're all doing this together, putting ourselves out there, so thank you guys as well. A little about myself. I moved here almost 8 years ago. I moved across the country. And with my husband, daughter, and dog at the time. And my husband always knew that he wanted to move back. For myself, it was a big transition moving across the country, but it didn't take long for me to realize that this is where we wanted to raise our daughter, and we were here to stay. She is now, well, she was 8 months old when we moved here, and now she's in 3rd grade. And so she took her first steps here and crawled here, so we're raising her here. I listen to all the meetings. It actually makes my husband kind of crazy because I'm walking around with I'm sitting, I'm down, I'm gonna let Andrew talk. I'm asking for your vote on November 4th. Thank you.
And Andrew Vega.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Andrew Vega, and I'm a born and raised Low Country native. So I feel and I've seen all the change that we're talking about. My entire adult life, since I was 18 years old, I've been serving my community, my state, and my country. It started off at the Air Force Academy where I earned my civil engineering degree. And after that, I went to Air Force pilot training, became a C-17 pilot, serving on active duty, returning back to Charleston in 2010, and staying and transitioning to the reserves and becoming an airline pilot while still being an Air Force Reserve pilot. I've held the public trust my entire career. You've trusted me with your sons, your daughters, your mothers and fathers. It's intense to have carried all that weight and that burden. I understand what it means to hold that trust, honor that trust, and do the right things for our community. I hope to earn your vote on November 4th.
All right, thank you, candidates, for that. And we'll pass that mic down. Mr. Cohen will be the first to go with this question. Why do you think you are needed as a member of City Council right now?
Okay, what I said earlier, I've been on the Planning Commission. I bring a lot of experience into council, not coming in, having to go through a steep learning curve. I've worked with a lot of the council members. I get along well with all of them, with all the members of the Planning Commission. And I go through and I watch all the committee reports in preparation for what can come before Planning Commission. So I try to keep abreast of what's going on. I don't necessarily have all the details in my background yet. I'm learning, but I will spend the time to do the research and help make the right decision.
All right, thank you. Mr. Kramer, if you'd like me to repeat the question, I can, but if you're good with it, you're welcome to go.
No, I got it. This room is crowded tonight because I think you believe there's a gap in terms of leadership and execution. And when I think about where we are as a community right now, we're in emergency reactive mode. right? If we think about the first responder situation, if we think about what's going on with beach renourishment, we think about some of those issues, that's where we are. And I think back to some of the organizations that I've worked in and led, similar situation. There was a lack of leadership, there was a lack of accountability, there was a lack of urgency, there wasn't proactive planning, and basically what you have to do is you got to call it out. You got to call it out in a very proactive, positive way. You got to identify where the gaps are, you got to change behavior and culture, and then you got to hold each other accountable as well as collaborate together to drive results with a high sense of urgency. And that's why I think those experiences can help me add some value here as well.
All right, thank you. Mr. Larry, why do you think you're needed as a member of City Council, and why now?
Sure. So I think I bring a fresh, not I think, I definitely bring a fresh perspective to some of the issues that have been long talked about issues. Every election cycle, we're talking same issues, different day. I don't think, whether it's in business and nonprofits, whatever it is, I don't think there's a negative to bringing in fresh sets of eyes on existing issues. It just brings a different perspective. So I bring that. In addition to a fresh perspective, I bring a youthful, family-oriented perspective. I have 2 little ones. We live in Wild Dunes. We have a perspective of what most of the young families in this community and future generations are looking for, and at the same time, what level of respect and some of the attributes that our predecessor generations are looking for. So I think I bring those. I bring operational background from business. I know how to collaborate again. I know how to work with others. I don't have a sense of pride when it comes to coming with all the answers. Rather I'd rather work together with others and engage with people where it's their expertise, for instance. And I think in this community we're extremely fortunate to have people from all different backgrounds, all different professional careers, all different points of life, and can bring a diverse perspective to some of these issues.
All right, thank you. And Ms. Myers, why you, why now?
So in my former life, and somewhat still today, I was a lawyer, and when I was, or am a lawyer, my favorite part of that was mediation, and that was because we had a chance for both sides to come together and to collaborative seems to be the word of the day, collaborate and negotiate, really, and everybody, the best mediation was when everybody walked away as a little bit upset and not quite, nobody was real happy. And so I think that that's something that I bring, is the ability to collaborate and negotiate. And I would like to sit down at the table with all different people from this island and work to solve our problems together, and but also negotiate and fight hard for the city and the residents who live here.
All right. Bev Miller.
Thanks. My journey's a little bit different. I started as advocating for my children in the school system, and that taught me how to lobby. I ended up down at the Capitol lobbying for funding, lobbying for better schools. And what that led to was a job at the Capitol. I worked down there, and I saw it from the other side then, because I worked for a legislator, very powerful legislator, and answered constituent questions, and really got a feel for what the legislator wanted, great for lobbying techniques. After that, I was asked if I could start a city and help start a city, and I did. It was a city of 55,000, and if you think that's easy, it is not. But I learned a lot. I learned a lot about municipal government at that time, as you can imagine, helping with the city charter, organizing that, knowing what a form of government is, different council form of government. And I was lucky enough to be elected to city council, and I served for 7 years as mayor pro tem. And that's where proven leadership really comes. And I think, your question of why now, I'm very excited to do this again. I wasn't for a long time. I would have been a reluctant candidate any other time. But, you know, we have a lot of needs. We have a lot of high dollar items that are coming up. We need to lobby at the state. And I think I can be a real voice for Isle of Palms at the state and at municipality. Thanks.
All right. Krista Swingle.
So why am I needed and why now? I listen to all the meetings, and I can't tell you how many times I've said, what about this and what about this, and let's do this, and we need to do it now. So I think that I'm informed. Well, I know I'm informed and engaged and hardworking, and I think that I can implement a lot of the ideas that we have plans for, and we have had discussions on end about, and really try to move the city forward ahead now. In regards to me kind of personally, I think I'm also collaborative, and I think I also have a different kind of fresh, hardworking perspective from work experience. I used to work at a nonprofit redeveloping 35 acres at the port, and it was a private-public partnership. So the dynamics with municipalities and getting what you need accomplished, I am very familiar with. I also do property management, and that is a third of the island. So I have hands-on experience and can come up with some perhaps outside of the box type thinking to one of the property owners, the ownership of the island. And I also listen to all sides from different perspectives. Okay, thank you.
And Andrew Vega.
So why am I needed on council? Well, 4 years ago, I ran for council, and I was unsuccessful getting onto council. But even though I wasn't elected, I stayed engaged. I stayed involved, coming to meetings, talking to other residents, talking to my neighbors, going to all the public events, and watching what was happening over time. I was still serving in the Air Force Reserve, so I decided not to run in 2023. And then I've retired in 2023, and I was even thinking about not running this cycle. But I had neighbors and friends approach me and say, we'd like you to run. We think you well represent us. We think you think that I think objectively and what they've watched on the Beach Ad Hoc Preservation Committee, how I've gone through thinking about that process, and they asked for me to bring that skill set to our community. I'm happy to do that. I think I bring that leadership both in a tactical environment and to looking towards the future strategy of our community. I'm raising my 2 children here. We chose to come here because we loved the beach. We came here as teenagers, and what I bring to the community is a love for this place. I cherish it. I want to see it do well into the future, and for it to be for my children and hopefully their children. And that's what I bring to the community. Thank you.
All right, thanks. I'll save you the trip and pass the baton down here to Mr. Bogosian. All right.
Yeah, thank you. When I stood up here, or events like this 4 years ago, I told people that I'm not a politician, and I didn't really have any desire to ever be a politician. But I saw some issues that were facing the city at that time that were pretty significant, and I thought my background would be good, and others told me could be helpful, so I ran for council. While there is some unfinished business, there's a lot of new issues facing us now that didn't face us 4 years ago. The common issues, we still have traffic, but the amount of visitors coming to the island is more. It's putting pressure on us. The beach is arguably the worst it's been. We have to have solutions, and we have to have them pretty quick. Our finances, with the beach renourishments and other things coming on, need some strategic thinking. All of these issues, I think, need to have strategic long-term views and not short-term views. And my background, I think, is better fitted today because now I am a politician. I understand how government works. I understand that it's not the same as in business of how you get results. And I think that experience is very helpful. But my career, I still have some experiences. I'm a chemical engineer. I spent 35 years as a CEO, a CFO, and a CEO. And all those skills are also applicable in solving the big issues that we're facing today.
All right, we'll pass the mic to Mr. Kramer. He'll start us on this next round. Lengthy question here, so heads up to all of it as I get through it here. The town of Mount Pleasant and others were directly impacted by FEMA ending its Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities program. Mount Pleasant lost millions for flood mitigation. Given this trend, what are your suggestions for finding monies to fund resiliency projects generally? Many candidates talk about being more aggressive to get grant monies and state funding, but what does this mean in practice? Mr. Kramer.
Yeah, you know, I come from a background, and I'm going to answer the question, but I come from a background that basically had me in front of the U.S. Congress talking about healthcare and healthcare outcomes. I've actually run in front of the FDA. I've run in front of state Medicaid and Medicare agencies. So I know what it takes to basically try and solicit and execute on funding opportunities. It takes a lot of digging, a lot of hard work, but it also takes proactive planning, and it takes assigning tasks and ETAs, estimated time of arrivals, to those that are actually working. So along these lines, what's really needed is a comprehensive proactive plan with assignments and opportunities to go out and network and solicit funds, whether it be from the public or the private sector, and engage the appropriate representatives, whether it be from state, federal, or local government, to make sure that those things happen.
All right, thank you.
I won't make you repeat the question. No, I was thinking it in my head just to mess with you, but yeah. So at the end of the day, I think it really takes prioritization of it. So you know, ultimately, if something's enough of a priority, you'll figure out a way to get it done. You know, when it comes to things like this, I agree with Mr. Bogosian as far as having a little bit of background understanding of how the political side of things works is beneficial. Now, I don't think you need to bring that to the equation. I think as long as you know what value you do bring to the equation, and you know where to again get the solutions, get the outcome you want, that's key. So I do not have that political background, but I know where to go for the answers. I would say as far as the other side of it is having strong relationships with your representatives. So for instance, Representative Bustos, having good relationships with those that are going to Columbia, advocating on behalf of us, having consistent conversation with them. And ultimately, again, it goes back to the prioritization, but if you start with the intended outcome that you're looking to get and work your way back from there and have measurable steps along the way to ensure you're reaching said point, I think that's the approach to take, and then just understanding again the relationships with those in Columbia and how to get the intended result.
All right, thank you.
So yes, resiliency is going to be a big struggle for us in the upcoming years, and we have lobbyists working for us at the state and federal level now. But we need to be working smarter, not harder. We need to get more influence in Columbia and at the federal level. The beach renourishment is a perfect example of what how we need to be. We need to be more proactive. We've got to get started on these projects years before we ever expect the project to start. If we just get started, it seems like we just put in permits for beach renourishment that maybe will start in about 16 to 18 months. And sadly, that's not soon enough. We are behind the 8 ball already on that project. And so we've got to do a better job of getting things faster. We've got to have, especially for the beach, we've got to have the science behind us, and we've got to have everything ready to go so that we have all of our ducks in a row when we go to ask the state for permits and then for grants also. And the grants come and then they go, and if we miss them, they're gone. So we need better leadership, and we need to do we've gotten better over the last couple of years, but we need to continue to improve so that we can keep finding those grants because they're out there.
So this is my wheelhouse. We went to Columbia a couple years ago to try to talk to them about home rule, learned a lot about beach funding and how we don't have any. And, you know, the state of South Carolina sets aside $1.5 million. That's for the entire coast. So we have a lot of work to do up in Columbia. When we go up there, Senator Campson is a complete ally. He's trying to get money for beaches. But you know what? The legislators that are west of 95 look at us like those people don't need money. They've got all the money they need. And that's a horrible attitude. We don't own the beach, but yet we're expected to pay for it. So we got a lot of work to do up there. And I'll tell you, having been in the legislature, it is politics. It is all about politics, unfortunately, and nobody likes to play that game, but you have to. But we need our lobbyists. It's so important for us. We need a plan. Like, you know, we talk about beach renourishment, and we need a long-range plan. We're getting there. I think we're making some progress, you know, with the Foth Olson coming in and really trying to get a plan together anyway, so that we can execute. But we need forward thinking is what we need. We don't need to. We've been kicking the can since 2008, as far as I can see. Thank you.
What does strategic fundraising mean to me in practice? Well, we have lobbyists, state and federal, and they've already recently, so I don't know exactly the month that the federal lobbyists were retained, but so far they've been really good at identifying funding for us, and I'm very, very, very excited about it. So there was a $7 million, I believe, in the water grants, $700 million state surplus, and right there, already our lobbyists are identifying for us funding that we need to make sure we get. So what am I going to bring to it? Well, I'm tenacious and I'm hardworking. So they're identifying these funding, and we need to make sure that we get it. In January, there's the beach advocate meetings. We need to make sure that our lobbyists are maybe there. We need to all make sure that we're there. We need to have representation and be vocal and hardworking for all of this money that now they're identifying for us, and we get it because we need it. And we have a lot of priorities, but a lot of it's going back to the state. And it can't all rely on us. We really need the state to partner with us, and we need to build those relationships and continue to build those good relationships. And I think that was it.
Okay.
So as a list of the question, we all need to recognize is that we're all competing for these limited resources now. Resources are dwindling, and as a community, we're fighting with our neighboring communities for these grants or funding. One of the things that we have here is a great deal of accommodations tax, yet the state ties our hands with how much we need to spend on marketing dollars. What I'd like to see our lobbyists do is advocate to reduce that amount that we need to spend marketing and selling this place, which obviously has been selling itself. That's why so many of you are here, because you came here probably as visitors and then came and said, I want to live here. I want to retire here. I want to bring my grandchildren here. And that's why we have growth across the region. We need to tell the state, we're doing well on marketing. Let's reduce the volume that we spend on that and put that money back into our city government so that we can use the money created by tourism here on Isle of Palms.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, let me first just say that we have been somewhat successful with getting some grants for resiliency, and especially as it relates to drainage. And in fact, we have a project going on right now that there's an ongoing grant for. But I would say the success has been limited at best. I think that obviously one approach in our approach is we do have a state lobbyist, and we do have now a federal lobbyist, has been mentioned. On the state side, though, it's not just as simple as hiring a lobbyist. They pay the retainer every month, and they'll take your retainer and send you a monthly report every month, but that's not getting the results that we need. What it takes is meeting with the lobbyists on a routine basis, setting expectations, understanding what's available. But not only that, there's a multitude of other representatives around the state. We can't just rely on our state representatives. We have to go meet with others, because when you get to the state legislators, as General Assembly, it's already been mentioned, no one upstate wants to give any money to the beach. We've got $1.5 million. The state of Florida has $75 million. So we have to convince them that this is an economic hub for the state. We have to get their votes. It's not, and we have to be more proactive and more active in that process. So I think it's understanding the politics around it is extremely important to ultimately achieving the kind of results we want with grants.
All right.
So since a lot of people have already mentioned about our lobbyists, I won't go into that group. You're asked what I would do. Well, part of the comprehensive plan is to identify potential sources of funding. Every community in South Carolina has to do a comprehensive plan, so I probably read 20 or 30 different comprehensive plans, took that list of where other people are getting money from, and we added several new ideas into our comprehensive plan. One of the things we had noticed, though, is some of this funding, it has to be executed in a certain period of time. So if we don't have projects planned out, lined out, and have done the upfront work, we're going to miss the opportunity to get the grants, because we can't wait to get there's a great potential grant and then start thinking about what we could do with it. We need to have the projects ready to go and then go after the funding.
All right, thank you. And if you'll pass it up to Mr. Larry, you'll get the first crack at this one. How would you assess the ongoing efforts to manage population growth and livability issues as identified in IOP's strategic plan? Do you have specific recommendations for finding a balance between tourists, businesses, and residents?
Let's see. Short answer is yes. I have some ideas. Ultimately, again, it comes down to what is the intended outcome? What is it you're looking to accomplish? When it comes to in this scenario here, it's identifying what is the livability standards we're looking for, and I think anyone living here has got a certain baseline for what that is. A certain level of quiet at night, a certain level of feeling safe, a certain level of being able to just get to the store without taking an hour. And ultimately, when I look at that, I think we really need to take a strong look at what's going on with the day trip community and really identify ways to mitigate some of the effects of that. Some of the common livability issues: traffic, parking, trash, crime, etc. A lot of those things are either are amplified during certain months of the year. They're related to people that are coming from over the bridge, coming on, staying for the day, leaving, not transacting much commerce. Whereas we have people that are staying here for a week at a time and dining at our restaurants here, spending money on the island, essentially living here for a year. So they're mindful of that. Again, I think we have case by case scenarios for issues we need to address, and I think we're a small enough island where we can address it case by case.
So when I ran 4 years ago, the big issues were traffic and parking, and we still have issues with traffic and parking, unfortunately. We had a great plan. I thought, to have 2 lanes going off the connector that would have really helped, at least to be able to get to the store. But that's fallen flat. There's been some issues with the DOT. Again, and with Mount Pleasant, again, we need to have more collaboration. We need to be able to sit down with our neighbors across the bridge and the people in Columbia, and we need to fight to try to get these things done. When it comes to other livability issues, the noise ordinance is a perfect one. Our chief of police said that he it's not enforceable the way it's written, and unfortunately, we weren't able to get one put through. We've got another one coming up, so we need to try to work together as a council and a community and find a noise ordinance that's safe and fair and reasonable for everybody. So again, these are a couple things that we have been working on, and we need to get them done.
So hard to find a balance when you've got so many, the population explosion around you, and our island doesn't get any bigger. We've got to find solutions for traffic flow. Somebody already talked about the connector. The connector with bikes and pedestrians is, to me right now, we've got to have a better plan for that connector, and we really need to get with SEDOT and open up those conversations again. I hope that's not dead. Traffic flow, I worry about the bikers on Palm Boulevard, honestly. I look at organizations like Charleston Moves. Charleston Moves is interesting because they took responsibility for restriping the connector. I don't know if you all know that, but somehow we have to go back to Charleston Moves, and if they've got a beach to Battery plan, we need to be a part of that if they're coming onto Isle of Palms or influencing SEDOT about our city. Parking. Our 2015 parking plan is in place, and I fully support that, and I'm definitely going to fight for that. It's going to be opened up again in 2027 because our local comprehensive beach management plan is going to be under review. So we're going to have to be on our toes and make those hard decisions.
So how are we going to find balance with livability concerns? Well, during the summer, we have 20 to 30,000 cars that come on any given day just for the day to enjoy the beach. So we're looking at about 100,000 people that are coming from surrounding municipalities. So I think that we need to improve communication, see if we can perhaps communicate with the surrounding cities on what kind of parking, what the parking situation looks like. Because once there's no more parking, they're just going to continue to circle. So we can communicate better with our neighbors. Obviously, I definitely agree the 2015 parking plan, we need to make sure council stands behind that and is strong with making sure that stays implemented. We have 8 times the required parking that the state requires. So I think that it goes back to the relationships with Mount Pleasant, exists like surrounding municipalities, and then also with the state. And I when I was looking and preparing kind of where I think I can contribute, it really came back a lot to the state. How can we get the state to work with us and strengthen those relationships for our benefit? So that's my answer.
Obviously, the strain of the explosive growth around Charleston puts a strain on our island, which, like you said, is a finite resource, a finite size, yet growth continues to spread and clear every tree around the Charleston area. When I look at that, 4 years ago, I would have told you, as a kid growing up, I appreciated the free parking that existed along Palm. I came here as a high schooler, and that we should keep it forever. But as I've gotten deeper into this through the Beach Preservation Committee, you realize there's no money coming from the state to take care of our beaches, even though it's a state resource. I recognize something's got to change. And part of that is that we need contribution from the neighboring municipalities, the people that live nearby, going towards our beach. I'd like to see an adjustment as we look at this parking plan to protect our residential areas. Not only that, to capture revenue from beach parking. We've established this contractor. There's a way to do this and dedicate that money toward beach preservation. So that way the user of that parking recognizes that money is going to their benefit and to ours. And that's a way to balance it so they understand. And part of that strategy would be maybe we just charge for parking Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and leave Monday through Thursday free and open. because we would use the most peak demand to capture revenue, but make sure there's still accessibility for everyone within the low country.
Let's pass that on down, please.
Yeah, this is, I mean, it's been said, this is a problem not only facing the Isle of Palms, but many communities that have the benefits of, that we have and we get to enjoy as residents. The population growth is exploding. We have more and more visitors coming to the island with finite land. But that puts a few strains on things. One is traffic. We talked about that. My ideas around traffic, and we've talked about this for 2 years and nothing's been done, is we need to reconfigure the connector. It needs to be 2 lanes off and 1 lane on. And we're getting blocked by our friends at Mount Pleasant. Smart traffic technology. We need to utilize new ideas and technology, including artificial intelligence, not only in how our lights are synchronized in conjunction with Mount Pleasant, but we need to use it a lot of places in our city. Police to manually direct traffic. There's a lot of things that we can do with traffic. But I also want to talk about visitors. I think we need to rebrand the Isle of Palms as a family-friendly vacation spot. It needs to be totally branded differently than what it is now. And I think that draws the kind of demographics that we want to the island, the kind that somebody else mentioned spends a week here, spends time in our restaurants and our local establishments. It's not the bachelorette parties and the bachelor parties that really disrupt the livability for our residents. And that's one thing we can do and all work together on, and I think we can get agreement on.
Right. Mr. Cohen.
So traffic's been an issue on the island as long as I can remember, and that's been a pretty good while ago. When I went off Planning Commission, we were discussing traffic, and I came back on, we were discussing traffic. But we've not taken any action or anything to reduce it. One of the concerns that goes through my mind when we start talking about beachfront parking is the state has jurisdiction over the right-of-way, 100-foot wide right-of-way down Palm Boulevard. And you go to some other communities where the state just comes in and says, forget what you want, I'm gonna do what I want. So we have to work with the state. We can't be adversarial with the state to try to address how do we actually manage parking, not how do we restrict the parking. So that's kind of one of my pet peeves looking at it through the past history. As far as, like I said, I've seen the island expand. We've taken steps recently to kind of stop any further growth on the island, and we need to hold that line that we're not going to allow more development. One of the other things I recognized in talking to people is if you look at the traffic on the island, like I said, it is increased not only in the summer but also in the winter. And it's part of that is the way we live now compared to when these roads were built. Everybody has lawn care, a maid service, pool service. Look at all the trucks that are coming across the island and vans. And that's not our tourists. That's not the day trippers that are causing that big influx. And I don't know how we address that, but it's got to be changing the way we think about the road system.
All right, and Mr. Kramer.
Yeah, my comments tonight are not necessarily earmarked to be overly critical, because there's been a lot of work done and a lot of progress made as I've seen it here on the island. But when we think about livability, I think we think about safety, we think about infrastructure, and we think about its impact on the community and the businesses, right? From a safety perspective, we know what we're facing in terms of what's going on with first responders. I've also had the opportunity to talk to police. Some of the equipment that they've been asking for has been delayed, and in some cases, the equipment they've been asking for never made it to council because there's not a clear communication path in terms of what's needed. Emergency management and how we're tackling that. Right now, it falls on police, right? The recommendation, I know that we're putting a head count in place for beach renourishment. Maybe emergency management should be part of that responsibility as well, right? Infrastructure. Beach is a part of it, right? We're reactive right now from a beach renourishment program, and if in fact we don't solve that from the long term, it's going to have an impact on livability and business from a go-forward standpoint. So proactive, problem-solving, sense of activity and action is really critical to us.
All right. And we'll start our next questioning with Ms. Myers. Yeah, he started. Don't confuse me any more than I am.
Sorry.
All right.
Are you allowing for rebuttal or responses?
That's up to you individually to kind of get your hand up if you've got a rebuttal to a previous. Yeah,
Yes. Am I?
please. I think 60 seconds is what we've allotted for that.
I just wanted to say something. There was a comment about the police or the fire department not having the equipment that they need. I can tell you the 4 years that I've been on council, every single Chief Cornett and Oliveris have been wonderful. We've had a fabulous relationship with them. They work hard. All of their staff is amazing. And I do not think that there's ever been a single time that they have come to us and asked us for anything that we've ever said no. I know that I haven't, and I'm very proud of that. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
All right. If you'll take a seat, I'll read the next question, but you'll be the first to start.
Can I get a response?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so this is not intended to be a debate, but to your point, it actually hasn't come to you because it wasn't allowed to come to you. So if we're talking about the police department where they actually were looking for equipment such as motorcycles, all right, it was blocked at the previous administrator level, and it never got to council. So my point is that as council, we should really be thinking about what the communication path is. I come from organizations where there was always one-over-one capability, and that the rank and file could actually bring it forward, and we would have a process so that we could identify where those opportunities were, and there wasn't things that didn't get to leadership that should get to leadership because of previous administrations. So,
All right.
there you go.
Here's our next question. I see no others who want to rebut. Regarding the IOP's ongoing mobility study about bike and pedestrian infrastructure, what improvements should be prioritized and funded?
So it's finally going to happen. Waterway Boulevard is going to be safe and bikeable. That is something that people started working on long before I got involved, and thank you to those who started it, and to the current council that's gotten this pushed through, and thank you so much also to Wild Dunes for helping us and agreeing to partner with us on that. So Waterway Boulevard improvement bike path that's going to be a huge advantage for the backside of the island. When it comes to Palm Boulevard, my gosh, I wish we could just tell people not to bike on Palm Boulevard. Please don't. But the DOT has prepared some beautiful drawings of what we could do. And unfortunately, I think a lot of that's going to be rather expensive. But maybe with grant money, maybe again with working with the different parties, the biking community who does like to use it, and finding ways to make it safer. But I mean, just a simple thing of, I would love to see a sign that says, please try Hartnett if you're cycling. I mean, I've actually rolled down my window before and told people, like, hey, why don't you go try Hartnett? It's way quieter. So.
All right.
So we talked about the connector before. The connector takes the bicyclists or the cyclists over the connector and dumps them on Palm Boulevard and says, good luck, is what they say. And there is no luck with that. So we need a plan. There was a 2013 Stantec plan that I thought was just beautiful. I don't know whatever happened to that. Certainly needs to be updated so that we can have safe biking, safe pedestrian crossings. Some of the crossings don't match up, and I guess that's a thing we got to talk to SCDOT about because it's their road. But you know, we see visitors and day trippers and whatever coming from the neighborhoods, and you can't cross. So where do they cross? In the middle of the street. I mean, I don't blame them because they don't match up with the beach access, and I don't know what we can do about that, but maybe with an overhaul and looking at Palm Boulevard that we can do something with that. But we do, again, comes back to funding, and grants, and and maybe using some of that those ATAX dollars, if we can get those redirected, not to put heads in beds, but to actually put it into the infrastructure where we can put it into where the visitors can have a better experience here, and the residents can have a better experience getting to the beach.
I think that we need to prioritize bike paths, but also walking type paths, and I think they need to be designated. So when we're walking places, but also when you have strollers, I know that when my daughter was a baby, and we still use our stroller for our dog, but when we push our stroller around, it's nice to have a designated path where you feel safe and you aren't paying attention, you're needing to pay attention to vehicles coming, or if the sidewalk's uneven. So both of those things. There were, I think, 5 different proposed renderings that council reviewed for Palm Boulevard. And I know that I don't believe actually the bike path made it as the voted ideal one. And I remember thinking, no, I want a bike path on Palm. So perhaps maybe then a multi-purpose path. But I do think that the conversation should be reopened, and I think it's important. I also think that signage on Waterway with the multi-purpose path, since it won't be a designated path, we won't have the ability to force people to use bikes specifically. We won't be able to force bicyclists to use the multi-purpose path, so they can still use the street. So I'm hoping communication with Charleston Moves, signage, and just communication with surrounding municipalities about encouraging them to please use the multi-purpose path and not the road for our safety.
As one who walks, runs, and rides his bike around the island quite a bit, I appreciate exactly what we're trying to do and trying to make it safe. Not just safe for me. My children ride their bikes around this island to go see their friends. And so this is a critical component of living here on the island, is the ability to bike or run or walk around. The challenge is by state law, bikes are allowed on these roads. And so to try and prohibit them isn't really the cards. The reality is making a designated space for them so we can both safely operate and delineate. We talk about the funding, and right now, trying to find money for all these projects will be a challenge. So then what can we do in the meantime? I'll piggyback on what Krista said, communication. If we can try and develop a plan and map out and say, hey, this is the best designated route to ride your bike around so we can keep traffic flowing and keep you safe, might be the first step we need to take as a community to say, hey, here's our preferred bike path around our community. Second, find the funding in agreement with our neighboring communities to say, hey, if this wants to be a biking destination for people to come across the connector and land here, we need shared resources to make that happen so we keep everyone safe and keep everyone from getting hurt.
Okay.
I appreciate your time.
All right. Now, I'll keep getting my steps in here. All right.
Repeat the question one more time.
Sure. Want me to repeat the question? Regarding the Isle of Palms ongoing mobility study about bike and pedestrian infrastructure, what improvements should be prioritized and funded?
All right. As a matter of context, the mobility study that's currently underway was really a alternate use of our ATAX money. So we're actually using ATAX money to do the study in conjunction with the Council of Governments in the local area. But the intent of the study is to do exactly what I think Andrew was talking about, is to develop a plan that initially started for walkability and now includes all mobility, so bikes and even golf carts. And it's open for resident comment now. So I think it's going to incorporate everybody's views on it, and hopefully in conjunction with the Waterway project, it is a new walkway and sorely needed on Waterway Boulevard, that it will be able to map out the best ways, including crosswalks, to improve safety, biking and new bike lanes, but all forms of mobility across the island. So I don't have any major preconceived ideas, but I'm very anxious to see what the community thinks about it and for us to be able to come together as a council to kind of decide a path forward that will improve all forms of mobility across the island.
So I think if, following that, like I said, we have the mobility study going on, looking at paths around the island. And as far as trying to figure out where we put our priority, I'd have to agree with is when the bicycles come off of the connector, there is no place for them to go at this current time. So getting them either to Waterway or to the bike path that leads to Breach Inlet should be our priority. But we've done multiple studies about road and how we think Palm Boulevard should be. What about the intersection at the connector? But I think it's what always seems to be missing is that council get together and decide on a plan, taking all this input. It just seems to stall, and a couple of years later, we bring it up again. We go through the same steps again. I just don't want to see it stall this year.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of the priorities that have been mentioned. It's actually getting a solution and moving forward in a very proactive manner. I think the other piece is that we've got to make sure that we've got the resources, the know-how, and the expertise to go source funding, whether it be at the state level, whether it be at the federal level, whether it be private sources. We got to make sure that we've got the right mechanisms in place and the right resources in place, having done some of that myself, to really go after the funding, which is really critical to driving these priorities to fruition.
Being the last one to answer, thoughts running through my head, and I was, first thought is good luck getting a cyclist to follow any sort of rules you have in mind for them. But when it comes to the pain points on the island, I think everyone nailed them. Really, it's when it comes to cyclists specifically coming onto the island, and then Palm for the most part. I think Waterway is actually not terrible on the cyclist side, and then obviously in all the center streets, I would agree the same. So, first step is just identifying what are the pain points, and then again working your way back from there. So I think we need to do a better job of not a better job, do something when it comes to the lining of the roads and creating access points for people coming from the connector onto the island. I would say on the walking side of things, it's funny, of all the issues that come up, the misalignment of cross paths for beach access and the painting on the pavement comes up nonstop as far as Palm goes. I think that's the first step if we're going to have a list of action items is figure out how we can get the walking crosses on the street to line up with bike paths. I think another, when it comes to the communication of trying to get the messaging forward, we have the fortune and not fortune that a lot of the people that are on bikes here are on e-bikes that they're renting here. They're on rented regular bikes. Or they're residents. So for us to be able to communicate certain things that kind of discourage cyclists from Palm and maybe encourage them elsewhere, we could push that onto the businesses or just engage with the community.
All right. Next question, Ms. Miller will start. What lessons do you take away from the work and recommendations of the city's Beach Preservation Ad Hoc Committee?
Wait, I get to my page. So I totally support the recommendations, actually, of the ad hoc committee. We don't have a true long-term beach preservation plan, and we absolutely need one. They defined goals. They made clear steps. They committed to timelines. That's all good stuff. So the recommendations call for strong restoration policies, proactive erosion control, and consistent funding mechanisms. I mean, you can't get anything better than that. The challenge, I guess, is the implementation. I like the fact that we're looking at an engineering firm that can maybe put together a good plan. But again, it's all about the funding for the beach renourishment.
So they've worked really hard, and I think it started about a year and a half ago is when the committee started, and I got excited. I remember talking out loud, listening, and now we're still kind of wrapping it up, and we're going to start a new one. And I think we need to move ahead now. I think we need to, in addition to the beach renourishment, we need to come up with sustainable solutions. And get the plan in place, because you guys presented a lot and there was a lot of what needed to happen, but now we need to actually move ahead and getting it done. So all the plans and discussions, I think that's great, but I think we really need to move forward with implementing them now. And I was so excited about the Roth Olson second opinion, just because it gave us a second opinion to. We've been listening to CSC, which is great, but perhaps them together will really help us move forward with thinking outside of what we've been under the direction from previously. So, yes.
Well, I'm a standing member of that ad hoc beach preservation committee. So we have been working for a year and a half. We have been evaluating all the things going on in the hot spots on the island, what's good about the beach, what's bad about the beach, what's impacting the beach. This has been thoroughly investigated. It's been well documented. CSE has been taking all those measurements, and that's why Folth Olson was able to take all that data, all that input, and put together a second opinion. That's exactly what they needed to do. Another set of eyes. That's what engineers, it's how you collaborate, it's how you build that team. And it was imperative for our community to do that. I'm glad we did. The next steps going forward is looking at the feasibility of those ideas, those thoughts, because putting hardened structures, things that Folth Olson suggested, will have significant impact on the look of the beach, the way the flow of water will be along the beach, and they can even have an adverse impact at other parts of the beach, that could potentially create erosion in other spots. So there's still so many more steps. We are moving forward. We obviously have suggested we do a beach nourishment. The challenge is getting the funding, which we've talked about so much tonight, and finding those resources in a dwindling environment of resources at the federal and state level. So it will be the hardest part for the next council is finding the money. I mean, that really is. We know we've identified all the problems. We've identified how to move forward. Thanks.
I think the question is, if I'm not mistaken, is around what do we support of the beach advocates?
What do you take away from
recommendation?
what's
Yeah,
been done
yeah.
in that ad hoc?
Yeah, first of all, our beaches are our greatest treasure. That's why we're all here. If we allow them to deteriorate, especially at the rate they're going now, it's going to impact not only our quality of life, but the rental business, our businesses on the island. So it's critical that we get some really quick action. I applaud the work of the Beach Advocate Committee. I don't think their work's done, though, because just last week, they got the second opinion, and I think they need to reevaluate that. But from what I've heard and what I support, first of all, we need a very proactive, well-defined beach management plan. Ours is very reactive right now. We need a plan that's already, once one renourishment is done, we're already looking at the next. We have to understand where the sand sources are, what the triggers, first of all, to initiate the next renourishment, get the permit approvals in place. We need to look at leading edge technology to keep sand on the trouble areas. We can't keep putting sand on a renourishment and watch it all wash away. And what we just found out is there is a new line of thinking from this consultant. There's new approaches that we can put to protect the sand, to make it last longer, which not only is good for the beach, but it's good for the cost. If the less we have to do renourishments, the less it's going to cost us over the long run. So I see the stop sign. I could talk a long time on this, but I have to quit.
So I do think the committee's done a great job, and we need to keep working with them. The takeaway I got out of it is although right now we're looking at we've got the major beach renourishment projects underway. In probably 7 to 8 years, we're going to be doing it again, and we have got to identify the money and start planning towards that. We can always delay a renourishment effort. It's hard to move one forward, and that's kind of what has happened to us through this cycle. Is the erosion was there's more erosion than what was anticipated when they started planning these projects. I do think the other hurdle is, the first thing is, again, identifying how we're going to fund the next one. But the second part of that is we got to figure out what is our next move. We've got different proposals. We need to look at the feasibility of them. What are the impact of them? I know the growing idea was a great idea, and as he brought out, though, but in South Carolina, if that impacts Sullivan's Island, then we've got to renourish their beach. And that would be money that we don't have to do ours. And I think we have to put in a bond, not a bond, but a funding to remove that structure if it has negative impacts on it. So we have to look at those kind of risks and decide, is that our next approach? Or do we keep doing renourishment but try to accelerate it? And how do we move forward and go ahead and start making those plans?
Okay, Mr. Kramer.
Yeah, the obvious point is that beach renourishment is critical to our community. And, you know, my takeaway from some of the recent discussions in the last set of meetings, number one, erosion is far accelerated over our ability to replace it with the current plan. Secondly, that we need to find alternative sources of sand, right? Because what's being put in place right now, at least in terms of the subject matter experts, isn't necessarily going to work. I commend the committee for recognizing the fact that we needed to bring in this expertise, right? Over and above that, I also commend the committee for actually recognizing that they feel, and this is words out of their statements during the last meeting, that they feel basically that they're drifting a little bit and that they're not necessarily proactive planning as well as they should be, so they need some help, right? So their recommendation, as I understand it, is really to bring in these subject matter experts and these expert resources to really help them all the way through the planning process, the funding process, the regulatory process, and really help them execute on a long-term strategic plan, which right now everybody feels, at least on the committee as I understand it, we're behind on. So.
So I'll start with everyone's favorite word, collaboration. So when I look at this committee, I don't. As far as a display of collaboration amongst our committees, I personally think Beach Ad Hoc Committee is the most in line with my view of collaboration. So you take residents such as Andrew, you take council members, you take other residents on the island, and then so you're taking residents, you're taking public service figures, and then you're taking private sector experts on the matter, bringing them all together, and essentially starting at the issue and working your way back. I'm very supportive of what that committee's doing. As far as takeaways from the recent last Friday's meeting, et cetera, I think it's interesting to hear from second opinions. I think it's refreshing. I think it's necessary in any solution evaluation process. I think they propose some interesting ideas of how to have potentially some less intrusive solutions in place that aren't necessarily right on the beach, but they effectively deliver the same result. Looking at again ways to help supplement the renourishment process so that each time the sand's just not washing away. Again, with the well-balanced nature of that committee, I think it also allows us to keep an eye on unintended consequences of it, whether it's on our residents or ecological concerns.
So I was on the committee with Andrew also, and 60 seconds is definitely not enough to get to the meat of it. But at 90, sorry. That's why I've been talking so fast. So, yes, I think the committee did a lot of good work, and I commend everybody that was on that committee, and they worked super hard, and seeing how everybody, just scheduling meetings, getting everybody to work together. And it really was awesome to see how people with such different views came together and were able to sit down at the table and come up with really good ideas. And the second opinion, I think, was the best thing that came out of it. And because when we started, we said, okay, what does a good beach look like? Okay, let's get there. And then, okay, well, how often are we going to have to renourish to get to that good beach profile? And actually, one of the things that the second opinion told us was that probably the more often that you renourish is not necessarily better, because it costs a lot more and it doesn't hold up as well. And but anyway, my biggest takeaway for me is that we have a partner in this, and that is Wild Dunes. They are going to be part of this, and therefore they need to be sitting at that table. There are some residents on the committee that live in Wild Dunes, but Wild Dunes themselves needs to be sitting there helping making these decisions, a part of the decision. So moving forward, that's something I'd like to see.
Okay. Sure.
Mr. Kramer, in regards to the sand and the second opinion that Fulton Olson was talking about, they're talking about the donor sand from the spoil sites from the Army Corps of Engineers. Actually, CSE has given us a report talking about donor sand potentials offshore within 3 miles, and there's actually quite a bit of sand that they have identified. It still would require state approval, federal approval to take, but there is large volume of sand not far from our shoreline to be able to dredge appropriately. The sand from the spoil site, they said probably wasn't of the proper grain size and it had too much silts and clays. The reality with that, though, they also said, take the free sand. The federal government was paying for it, pump it on the beach. It still would buy you some time. Even though it was washing away quickly, it still created a buffer for, albeit a short while, it still had some benefit. It wasn't going to be a long-lasting one. But I just want to clarify that. That's all from the second opinion. Thank you.
All right. And Ms. Swingle, you'll be the first
Yeah.
to respond to this question. Okay. How would you handle disagreements and conflicts with community members, community groups, and other council members?
I would handle disagreements with the community and council members by being transparent and trying to see their perspective and talking it through. I think that the collaboration, there's 9 people total, so we're not going to all agree. And I think that that's the benefit of having a large council, is that we're coming from different perspectives. We have different backgrounds and skill sets that bring each person why they're voted into council. And not everyone's going to agree, but trying to understand their perspective, where they're coming from, and trying to talk it through, because ultimately you're representing your constituents. We're representing you guys. So trying to get to resolution versus divisiveness and just moving ahead.
Last time I ran for office in 2021, I had a resident ask me, what can you promise me? And I said, I promise you I'm going to vote one day and make you mad. That's the truth. One day you're going to make a decision up there and it's going to upset someone. But my follow-up commitment to that was, I'm willing to look you in the eye and tell you why I made the decision I made. That's how you resolve that conflict. It's going through, how did you arrive at that decision? Any good pilot debrief it has a lot of conflict. It's the only way you make things better. And that's the way we work in this community, and the way the community needs to work. As people have talked about on the Beach Preservation Committee, there was conflict. We would have conflict at the meetings, but we were trying to weed out the best solution. I think if you've watched those meetings, you saw how we arrived at that. You can't always be in agreement, but you have to be willing to look at someone in the eye, and with honor and integrity, own your decision, own how you got there, and portray that to the community.
All right. I got you. Thank you.
I guess first of all, I would say I welcome differing ideas, but I think you have to go into it without any set your preconceived ideas or your that you might have aside. You have to listen. But I think the best solutions come out of different ideas and debate, and probably one of my biggest disappointments with our current council have come when we haven't talked about issues or debated issues, and you come into council and a vote is taken without any discussion, where immediately people kind of go to their corners. I think that's a failure of the council for the city. I don't think we get best results like that. So I promote collaboration, I promote open discussion, especially on the council level, but anytime, I would welcome any conversation with residents, obviously, and have them often. And I think it's been mentioned before, the most important thing is to explain to them why you voted the way you did, or why you believe the way you do. So I think we can do more of that, though, and that's my commitment, is to make sure that this, if I'm elected this next time, I'm going to push to make sure we are collaborating and discussing, especially on council, more to get the best results for the city.
So I think I do pretty good with conflict. I've dealt with it pretty much my entire career. When you get a bunch of technical people in a room, they're all going to have a different approach, and their approach is always the right one. And like people said, I think you've got to respect the point of view that the other person is coming from and recognize that. That's my approach anyway. I also I want somebody to tell me why what I believe is wrong, because I want them to challenge me. Because if I cannot explain it, then I might be wrong. And that's the way I approach the discussions I have with people, is I want to know what their views are and have them tell me why I'm wrong.
All right.
Yeah, I'm fairly new to the island. I wish I had the opportunity to have been here for 10 or 15 years, but I hadn't. So I come without any historical bias. I've been in organizations where collaboration wasn't necessarily the norm, but I think the opportunity from a collaborative perspective is to really identify where it's breaking down and really start to talk about how we can build it back up. And what does that look like in terms of change of behavior? What does it look like in terms of really listening for facts, not necessarily forming opinions before you even really had the chance to listen to all the facts? And then open communication and dialogue, which means transparency. And if in fact you don't agree with somebody, there's nothing wrong with telling them that, as compared to keeping it to yourself and then working to actually undermine what they're trying to do. So I think there's opportunities, as I understand it, for further collaboration, and I'm looking forward to actually rolling up my sleeves and seeing if I can help.
So for a nonpartisan political environment like Isle Palms, anyone that's paying any attention to the issues at hand, it's a pretty divided field. Let's just call it. And when it came to me doing my campaigning, my primary focus was on reaching as many people as I could to really understand the issues at hand. I don't think you can understand it from one side, and with all the people that I've met over the last several months and a couple of years now, I don't think any of them would tell you that I didn't lead with the approach of trying to understand what at the time was the alternative view to mine first. I mean, that's actually got me in hot water with certain people that don't like others. But ultimately, my first step in anything is to go as far opposite of what my current view is at the time, because I don't really think the answer lies on either side, quite frankly. I think it lies somewhere in the middle. I think both sides are generally right. It's just a matter of how much. So I think if you don't collaborate, which I think as far as our existing council goes, I think we have some room for improvement as far as getting along and collaborating. And I think there's no better poster child for a fresh perspective than myself.
All right, so first thing I would say is to ignore the haters on social media. But in addition to that, I would say that I think that the biggest thing is transparency. I think that there's been a lot of times there's people, there's council members, and the mayor, and they're having conversations, but they're having conversations that everybody doesn't see. And so they're not helping anyone. Whether those could be the best conversations in the world, but if everybody doesn't know about it, it doesn't help. And unfortunately, that's something that when I started 4 years ago, I wasn't really prepared for that. And some of these things happened, and I didn't realize it. And now I do. And I will certainly make sure that doesn't happen again. We need to sit down at the table with anybody that's involved in an issue. Anytime we have an issue, we need to invite people to come to meetings. We need to sit down at the table with them, and we need to talk and listen, and they need to listen, and we can get things done that way. We really can. Thank you.
So I'll start with residents first. I think that, you know, when we have council meetings and we can make public comment, there's no answer for that public comment. So you can say what you want, you have 3 minutes, and then you go home. I think it's all about finding what the issue is and discussing it in an atmosphere with civil discourse is what is important to me. I think what we need, and I'll say quarterly, I don't know what the time frame is, but town hall meetings. I've participated in those before, and they are fabulous for listening. And there is a dialogue that happens between the council. All of council is there, or anybody who wants to come. But that creates that opportunity for residents to get an answer right then. You know, state your issue, whether you agree or not, the council member agrees or not, and it's a discussion. At the council level, again, it's all done through voting and through the discussion on any kind of whatever is before the council. So, and you have to be transparent. You know, there's no such thing as this, oh, this is already decided, we're just going to take a vote. That should never happen. There should always be conversation. And I have to stop.
So we're going to go to the very end, and I'm going to stop things as it relates to our Q and A. And we're going to start with our closing statements from each candidate. And Andrew, you're going to get us started at that end. Let me just thank everybody before, while you guys are kind of collecting your thoughts and how you want to wrap it up. Thank you for your patience and your attention here tonight. This has been very good. Gives you a chance to be informed, gives you a chance to have a real idea of who you want to vote. I can't tell you the number of times I've been coming out of a precinct or talking with Judy in the car, and I'd say, gosh, I don't feel like I got a great choice here. You know, I'm going to hold my nose and pull the lever here. You've got some nice options here from what I've seen tonight, and with the answers and the preparation and the passion for which they're pursuing their positions. So we're going to let you go for 60 seconds here, and we'll just come right back down the line here with your closing statements.
Well, first, let me thank you all for coming this evening. It's great to see this turnout for an event like this. And I love seeing everybody at all the public events that we have as a community. When I came here to Isle Palms, I looked forward to having this small community moving from Mount Pleasant over to here, and the feel that we have, and we want to keep that going. I love raising my kids here. I want it to be around for a long time, and I want to keep the character of what this community brings to us. I appreciate you guys giving me your attention and time, and I look forward to hopefully having your vote on November 4th. But to speak to all your neighbors, make sure they get out and vote, whatever their opinion is. I'd rather see the highest turnout of voters we could possibly have, so we have the best foot forward as a community. That's ultimately what I want for our Isle of Palms.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity tonight and for putting this event on. A little bit I think that I bring common sense, and I look at all sides, and I'm hardworking, and I am an independent voice. And I really think that I would be a good opportunity to help move the city ahead and forward. As just my platform, my number one item is always safety. As a mom, it's behind everything in our community. I think that safety is the backbone of our community. Also, the beach is a big component to me. It's an important component, and infrastructure, and I also value property rights. I would humbly and respectfully ask to be one of your votes on November 4th. Thank you.
Thank you. So this election is about the future, not about our past. Good governance is continuous. It doesn't stop. It requires steady evaluation, requires management, and it requires the courage to adapt as situations change and the community changes. If we want to live up to the vision in our comp plan and our strategic plans, we must act. We can't stand still. We can't do nothing because change will come. I'm going to leave you with 3 thoughts. 1, my experience is going to lead us to an effective city government, financially viable, strong in ethics, and serving residents and businesses with integrity. 2, I pledge to come prepared to come prepared to all meetings, be present in that meeting. 3rd, I commit to be responsive to you, the residents and the businesses, and your needs and priorities. I respectfully ask for your vote on November 4th, and I thank you all for being here.
Yeah, thank you all for being here. It is pretty impressive that we had to not sell, but have tickets to make sure that whoever wanted to come could come, because I think we would have had a lot more people if we didn't. Maybe we'll have it in a bigger place next time. But thank you all so much for putting this on. And yeah, I promised 4 years ago to work hard for this community that I had come to love so much, and I've raised, well, not fully raised my kids here, but I've been here for going on 10 years, and feels like I've raised my kids here the whole time. And they've loved it here, and I have so many wonderful friends, and the community feel is just amazing, and I've met so many people through this process. I appreciate all of you who, sit out there and give a thumbs up and smile, and I would like to hear from even more people. And I promise to keep working hard and doing whatever I can do to help this community. Thanks.
Yeah, so, for some people, they come into this process or are running for an elected position with a, certain agenda or a certain type of specific issue that, they're advocating for, really pressing far along with. Others that are just at a certain point in life or their career where they're just, looking to find purpose, and identify, what that next chapter is and have a sense of giving back. When it comes to me, I'm at neither of those points. I'm pretty, well into my career right now, right in the middle of it. I have little ones at home, and again, I'm really unbiased when it comes to the issues at hand. So, I just truly saw a opportunity to add value to the community and, continue contributing. To, comment on a point made earlier, this election's about the future. It's not about the past. I really couldn't agree more. This island isn't just where I'm living right now. It's where I'm raising my little ones. It's all they'll ever know, until they're, out of the house. And, it's my obligation to be as much a part of this community as I can.
Well, thank you, everybody. And thank you, panel, because I think we're all about trying to do what's best for the community. We may have different thoughts and different ideas in terms of how to do it, but at the end of the day, I think we're all looking to really serve and drive positive results. I think from my perspective, the organization here needs a government that's accountable, that drives results, that's proactive, and incorporates strategic planning as part of what they do on a day in and day out basis, and drives results by collaborating. And what that means is listening to the community. You won't see marching bands and advertisements coming from me, but I'm more than willing to sit down with each and every one of you to really listen, to understand, and see how I can basically add value and drive results. So thank you.
So I too want to thank everybody for coming here. I know that's a lot to take in. I just would like to have that opportunity to take the knowledge that I've gained through the Planning Commission and try to actually move forward and see some of the long-range planning implemented instead of sitting on the shelf. And that was what really pushed me to run for council. I've gotten to know a lot of the people that are up here, and I've got a lot of respect for almost everybody up here. And when I said almost everybody, it's because there's some I just met tonight. So, but no, like I said, I think you've got a hard choice to make up here, and I hope everybody takes time to think about it and see where they want the island to go.
Again, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting the event. But as others have said, most importantly, I want to thank all of you who are here tonight and those watching on the video later for taking time to get involved in the whole process. This is truly an important election. We're facing significant issues that will shape the future of our island, and they require strategic thinking, collaboration, and results-oriented leadership. I encourage everyone to do their homework on the issues and the candidates and make your voices heard. Early voting begins 1 week from today. Election Day is November 4th. I would be grateful to earn your vote so we can continue working together to keep Isle of Palms the special, family-friendly community we all love. And my website is John B. for IOP if you want to learn more. But thank you all.
All right, let's give all our candidates a round of applause. I'll just wrap it up by saying it's been a quick couple of years since we did this, not too long ago, and the years continue to fly by. Even some days, my days are very long, but my weeks and months just keep, you know what I'm saying? I did have a gentleman come up to me right before we started, and he just wanted to say hi and say, I hadn't seen you in a long time. And I said, well, you just told me how old you are if you know who I am. But he said to me, he says, I watched you play college basketball. That's all. I said, well, my hair was longer and my pants were shorter at that time. But it's so good to have everybody here. Let me just close with a couple of things, housekeeping, just to get us wrapped up here. Again, thank you for your time tonight. This is important, and I think you leave here as a better informed voter of your options. We encourage you to contact the candidates, study the issues carefully, and vote for the candidate of your choice on November 4th. Use the League of Women Voters Vote 411 tool. You find that on the League's website to check the status of your voter registration. Then you can learn more about the candidates' positions beyond what you heard here tonight. Early voting dates are October 20th through October 31. You can check out the Charleston County Board of Elections website for information about absentee voting at vote@charlestoncounty.org. A recording again of the forum will be posted to the Charleston League of Women Voters YouTube channel in just a few days. And thank you for being here, and drive safely, and appreciate your being here tonight.